Aviation Fin UK, runway 01, clear to take off.
Hello and welcome to another Aviation Sim UK video. So today is the first of a series of videos that is going to cover the roles of the different controllers at an aerodrome, or the typical roles because they can vary on local procedures. So it's kind of to explain to pilots as well as controllers about different procedures, because some controllers don't understand what the actual procedures are, and pilots sometimes get a bit annoyed when controllers do what controllers do, and they don't fully understand why things are being done, like why we implement slots, or why we hold them on our frequency. So, the role of a delivery controller is to clear an aircraft via an appropriate route. One tool to do this is the standard route document, which you can get off the NAT's website if you just search up online. And what they're just making sure that the routing is okay up until the exit point in the UK FIR, because obviously it's just delivery in the UK. They are here to confirm the aircraft type, the stand number, and the weather information. So obviously different aircraft have different performances on takeoff. For example, 747 requires a higher not takeoff speed, but a higher climb speed, because they're obviously bigger and need more speed to generate more lift. And obviously a 747 is obviously a lot faster than a Cessna 172. So we need to know the aircraft type, and that's quite important. We need to know the stand number, because in real life we have the surface movement radar, and you don't necessarily know what blip corresponds to what aircraft all the time. So you have to verify the stand number just so that we know what blips or what. And obviously the weather information, we need to know the QNH and whether they have the ATIS, because obviously some pilots can't be bothered to read that or listen to it. So we have to verify that just in case. And the role of the delivery as well is also he controls the flow of the aerodrome. So he is responsible for either overloading tower or being nice and giving a nice control flow. The analogy that I sometimes use is you should see yourself as a delivery as basically controlling the flow of a stream, and you're trying to make sure that stream flows really nice. If you have a load of aircraft at the hold, then it basically puts a dam in the middle of the stream, and therefore causes issues. The aircraft burn up fuel at the hold, and pilots generally have a go at tower. So we want to try and avoid that if possible. So, first things first, we've got the radio check. Commonly, pilots will just use the radio check on deliveries frequency just to make sure that the microphones are working, because there's no point calling everyone up asking for a radio check, because the other controllers get annoyed. So, the purpose of the radio check is to let the pilot know how well the controller can hear them. This is on a scale of 1 to 5, and one of the common issues that I've encountered personally is that usually you'll be listening on frequency and you'll just hear a load of static for about 2 minutes. This is usually because the pilot is actually requesting a clearance and his mic's not plugged in, and therefore you only get static. So the phraseology to expect is 0123, so that's call sign, Everground, good afternoon. So you've identified yourself. Readability is 2, and you're very quiet. So if the readability is in 5, we usually give reasons so the pilot can improve slightly. If they're too quiet, they can talk louder. If it's static, they can plug their mic in. And obviously, the pilot's phraseology is just Ground, good morning, speedbird 123, request a radio check. And sometimes they might say the frequency as well. The controller also might say how me, that just is let me know how you hear me as well. That's usually used if there's a bit of an issue in hearing the pilot or the controllers, if there's a little bit of a communication issue. To find out whose, I'm not going to say fault it is, but whose fault it is. So, the next role of delivery is your IFR standard clearance. So typically, but not always, this is when an aircraft has filed via a SID and is going to fly the SID. What is the SID, I hear you ask? The SID is the Standard Instrument Departure, and it's defined in the AIP for all the aerodromes And for example, it'd be like the Lambourne to X-ray departure. The word Lambourne is the VOR where it finishes. If it's Novma, then the SID usually finishes at Novma. Sometimes these departure clearances may require coordination. If you look at standstids, the Lambourne departure is for Heathrow only and requires coordination with Heathrow director because of the potential for delays at the hold and stuff. Delays at holds in the air. So, obviously, when you're calling up as a pilot, you'll call up, for example, if you call up Gatwick Ground, good afternoon. Speedbird 123 with you, stand 23. Looking for clearance to Edinburgh. We're a 73. That's a bad example. We're an A320, and we've got information Alpha on board, QNH 1034. Okay? So all we've done in there is we've just included the aircraft type, stand number, agent information on board, and the QNH. If the aircraft does not give his aircraft type or stand number, then the delivery controller will ask you for it. So, it's better to give this in the first shot. If you don't give the information, or the QNH will add it to the end of the clearance. So, the controller's response is Speedbird 123, so again, the call sign. You're cleared to Edinburgh, so that is his clearance limit. That could be an oceanic entry point, cleared to oceanic entry point Summit. So it varies, depending on what your routing is. Via the Lambourne to X-ray departure. If you don't know the VOR, just spell it out phonetically, Lima Alpha Mike. It's a bit tedious when pilots turn around and say Lam to X-ray, because it's a bit weird. Squawk 1234. So that's your squawk code. Information Alpha QNH 1034 if you didn't give that. So with these standard departure clearances, you're only listing out for about, I think it's 5 bits of information. So when I have my sheet of paper up when I'm flying, I'm literally just writing down Lambourne 2 X-ray 1234 Alpha 1034, so that I'm able to put it into the aircraft, the computers. Just be warned, your squawk code and your QNH are 2 different things. Don't get mixed up because it's a bit awkward when you're squawking 1034. So the typical way that you generally figure the difference out is the squawk code generally is a code that you can't put in the QNH. Typically, not always. So, the other type of clearance you can give is an IFR non-standard clearance. So, IFR aircraft can either enter CAS or remain outside of CAS. So, some controllers don't necessarily know what the difference is. And it was annoying when I flew out of Manchester the other day and the controller didn't know what the difference is and gave me a SID and tried to get me to climb into CAS. I was like, no, I don't want that. So, these after departure instructions could be a heading. If they remain outside, it could be a track to a waypoint or a VOR. So it kind of depends on what the approach controller wants to do, depending on where their first fix is. So it does vary. I couldn't really include all of them because I'd be here all day talking about it. So you just have to ask the approach controller and he will generally tell you where he wants the aircraft to go. And it's either decided by int or fin, so have a look at local documentation. The other types of clearances, but I didn't want to cover them, is the VFR clearances and IFR circuits. Just because it's not really delivery's area of responsibility, delivery becomes a parrot, whatever approach tells you, you relay, or tower. So, the next kind of thing that delivery deals with is slots. And these are very confusing some of the time. So, what we've got is we've got the actual times, so actual off the block time and the actual time when the aircraft takes off. You've then got calculated takeoff time, which is when the aircraft is expected to take off. Target off the blocks time, when the aircraft is aimed to push back. Target start approved time, which is the target off the blocks time with any delays included. So usually we have the calculated takeoff time, which the aircraft files with Eurocontrol or the aerodrome or both, and they get given a CTOT. Then a computer magically works out, based on where the stand number is, the target off the blocks time. So, because they generally have fixed taxi times between target off the blocks time and the CTOT, it generally works. Then the target start approved time is quite fluid. It basically takes into account any delays. Usually you can look at the hold and figure it out by working out the C tot and the A tot and work out the difference. It's quite easy. The slots in the UK for C tot is typically valid from 5 minutes before the C tot to 15 minutes after. So, easy way to remember it is 5:15. Altogether makes 20. Quite a nice broad time if you think about how busy Heathrow gets. So, one of the last bits, handover to ground. You've got, two different options, depending on what you want to do. So you can tell the aircraft to hold position, startup is approved. If you want the aircraft to push back quickly and get out, for example, if you're in, I'm going to use Heathrow as an example, Terminal 5, usually you've got a lot of movements and you want to get aircraft out quickly. So you can get the aircraft to start up on stand instead of in the middle of a taxiway. Makes life easier. And you can just tell the aircraft to hold position and contact grounds. Either way is fine. Obviously, you might not be able to start them up on stand. You have to look at your local documentation for that, as usual. So, it kind of varies depending on which is which. So, some little hints and tips, important things to consider. As delivery, look at the holds and see how busy they are. Each aircraft at the hold is typically worth 2 minutes. Obviously, that changes depending on whether minimum departure intervals have been enforced or average departure intervals. So your tower controller will tell you how many aircraft he wants pushed back per minute, or how many minutes he wants pushed back between aircraft. Don't be afraid to implement slot times. They may seem difficult, but they're really easy to implement. You just work out what aircraft you want to go out at what times. You can talk to Towers, work it out as well, because Tower does obviously the RSIVA side of things, and he departs the aircraft. So he'll be able to help you figure out what aircraft to push back at what times. If you're in doubt, just give every aircraft like a 3-minute difference in slots. So, 3 minutes past, 6 minutes past, 9 minutes past, 12 minutes past, etc. If the hold starts to reduce, you're onto a cracker. And then once the delay starts to reduce to enough of a point where you're happy, reduce it to 2 minutes, see if it works. If not, increase it to 3. If it's not working, you can increase it to 4. It's completely fluid. Obviously, these take a while to implement, so don't sit there 5 minutes later and go, oh, the hold's still full. Obviously, take into consideration the fact that these do take a while to implement. Don't be afraid to hold people on your frequency to reduce the busyness of the airport. Aircraft on stand burn less fuel and pilots are generally less annoyed because they can leave the cockpit and go and have a cup of tea or whatever other pilots do. So it's fine to hold them on your frequency. If people are shouting at you, just tell them, the aerodrome's busy. I just need you to hold the stand because, where would you like to hold, here or on stand or at the hold? If needed, because people do skip queues because people are muppets. Put something like dash P in the scratch pad, something like that. It's your scratch pads, just so that you know who you're allowing ground to push back, who you've basically released to ground. It just makes life easier for you and for ground, because people don't skip queues and they aren't able to. And that brings an end to this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can check out our website as well. We've got Discord. All of the things are in the link. So we have links to all the things in the description below. And remember, aviate, navigate, and communicate. Take care.